And we're live.
Oh yeah.
Hey.
We've been live for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
You didn't record the breakdancing that we were doing to the theme song?
Um, I think at least on my machine it's recorded. I don't know if it went up on Twitch, but you did some crazy moves, man.
You
Like
catch my backflip?
I didn't know that you were such an avid Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo fan.
Well, there are a lot of things you don't know about me. But that's the mystery of Livebrush. Welcome everyone.
Hey there. Welcome everybody. Who we got in the chat? We got Chrisicon. Hey Chrisicon. Alec Hamilton, how's it going? Conrad, how's it going? You know, Alec Hamilton, you probably get this a lot, but Alexander Hamilton, not a bad name. Not a bad name.
I don't
I
I don't
mean,
think Alec wants to hear it.
he's probably heard it a lot, but
No, but he doesn't want to hear it because it's Livebrush time.
yeah, that's true. We probably shouldn't be talking about that. So we're back. It's been a week. What's new?
Well, dude, I have no idea. The week has gone so fast.
I know it does.
Is
It
it
does
just me?
feel like yesterday we did a show.
Right? Doesn't it feel like it's like, oh my God, we have another show?
Yeah, and then we're gonna have another one on Friday. It's just like super fast.
Yeah, sorry, I'm messing with my reference here. Of course, all super professional.
No, all good. I was reading the chat, and Alec Hamilton made a great joke. So I'll let you discover that, dude.
Let's see. That's a good one. That's a
It
good
is.
one. He had
It's
that in the
great.
pocket.
He did. He's probably used it.
Okay.
You probably used it a
But
lot, haven't you?
he's a professional. He's prepared. No, it's probably brand new material, but he's just. Dude, what are you working on today? Looks
Um,
like you have your dragon.
I'm back in Dragonland. I'm gonna play around with. This underpainting is all really red, but I think I'm gonna make it a blue dragon
Wow.
in a sunset situation, which is gonna be challenging because then I get to play with the dreaded cool to warm blue, which is possible, folks. It can be done.
What Tyler means is a blue in warm light versus a blue in cool light.
Yeah. That's what I
You
mean.
just get no. It's not what you said.
They know what I mean.
They know what I mean, right, Alec?
So I'm just gonna test in some colors here, and we'll see.
All right, right on.
It's gonna work.
Well, I am putting in an underpainting for this a new painting, actually for my solo show coming up in November at a Bend Gallery in
Nice.
Denver. So I am almost done with that comp that I was that we had started or that I was working on. The last 2 episodes, I think. Right? Was it the last 2 episodes?
I think so. That sounds about
Yeah.
right.
It's so ridiculous. Like it's like I watch podcasts or like video podcasts and or listen to them, and like when the host can't even remember what they did an episode ago, it's like it's your own show.
Yeah, but
How do you not know?
How can we? Yeah, now we know that it's near
I know.
impossible.
It's actually it's near impossible to remember.
Yeah.
It's extremely possible to forget.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, yeah. So we have another show on Friday, a special
Right.
show at Vision X, which is going to be great. Vision X conference online. We posted about it if you're interested in it. If you're still seeing this in time, Friday, July 29th. Am I correct on that?
I believe you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. At
This Friday.
the same time, basically 5 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. I'm sorry, 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I think it's going to be the Vision X conference is going to be awesome. If you want more details, the Moobot has a bunch of stuff on it that should be popping up. But if not, you can always check the Instagram our Instagram at Livebrush, um, one word, and where we have the info on it. Make sure if you're going to get tickets to it, because there are tickets to it, and the reason why they do that, it's not just us. It's like tons of people, tons of this incredible artists: Scott Burdick, Angela Sung,
Howard
Nathan
Lyon.
Faulk, Zoe Frank, painted like Zoe Frank, freaking Scott Christensen, David Dibble, a whole bunch of people. I mean, like, there's just like the list is insane. Rose. Call, I just if you go to visionnextlive.com, you'll see what I'm talking about. You could
Yeah,
actually
check it out.
yeah, check out the exhibitors. And the cool thing is, and the only reason why I know so much about this is because I actually wanted to sign up, go to as like not as an attendee last year because I had heard about it on the Art Grind podcast that um, Marshall Jones. I don't know if you know Marshall.
Uh, I don't know.
He's a painter. Yeah, it's there's great podcast called the Art Grind podcast, and it has a bunch of like revolving, um, like a whole sort of staff or a cast of hosts on it. But Marshall's one of the main ones. He's over at the New York Academy of Art, if I'm correct. But Marshall, have you seen this? Correct. I apologize if I'm wrong about that. But great painter. And so he was interviewing Brian Mark Taylor, whom you know from school. Did you cross paths with Brian? He was like 2 years
Maybe.
ahead of us.
Maybe. Sounds really
You
familiar,
know,
so probably.
Bill Mon. Let's go time. We should do time stamp on that. Time check how long.
I really
Bill
gotta
Mon.
get on the Moobot. Not the Moobot, but the little pet. Speaking of the Moobot, I digress really quickly. It's betraying us
Yeah.
again, it seems.
Really?
Um, yeah, it's not posting anymore, but we'll sort that out for next week. But hopefully by the end of the stream, it'll post information about.
Moobot.
Yeah,
I know.
hopefully it'll
I
post
think
some of that
do you
info
think
we're
it's
just
based off of?
talking about.
It's like probably. Is it based off of like the chat or?
Maybe, yeah, maybe the chat. If the chat's active, it'll post more. I don't know. I don't really know.
It awakens the Moobot. Stupid thing. So
Yeah.
there's a Brian Mark Taylor talked about it on. So Brian Mark Taylor is the co-founder of Vision X. He's a landscape painter, concept like he does I think concept art too. Um, but Bill had a landscape in his of his in his office, which is why I brought it up.
Oh, right. Okay. I probably
Yeah,
have seen that.
yeah, you would have seen it. You would have seen it, and so the cool thing about it is that it brings together concept artists, okay, and or people that work in the entertainment industry, um, and as well as fine artists, because there's a direct correlation between the two, especially when it comes to like landscapes. When you take someone like David Dibble or Nathan Fawkes, Angela Sung, like these people, like they have uh, uh, a career in the industry, working on movies and whatnot, but they also do fine art. Um,
Right.
and so it was like a common thing, you know. We didn't know about it until we hit school, and even remember when we met like Tim Avat over at Pixar. He would talk about going landscape painting with his buddies, and
Yeah.
Ernesto, or they call him Ernie, Nemio, another incredible landscape painter. He's a map painter at Pixar, at least at the time, when I met him. Uh, he was one of those people that would go paint, and so we had no idea there was a correlation, and so this was what this conference brings together, which is pretty cool because they bring in galleries, and they also bring in all these tons of like art supplies. People like Rosemary Brush is going to be there, Micro Hearted Paints. They have all these like specials and sweepstakes, and the cool thing is you can there's all these demos that are going on, and some of them are overlapping. They try not to, not a lot of them, but a lot of, some of them overlap. Like ours overlaps. It's a really popular time. So if you miss hours, or you go see hours and miss a bunch of like a couple of other ones that you wanted to go see, your ticket covers uh, 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 the ability to see all of that stuff on demand afterwards,
Yeah,
which is
that's a
pretty
great, super cool feature because you actually get.
isn't it?
I mean, it'd be like going to Comic Con or something and being able to like load up every booth that you checked out.
Yeah, and see like who's demoing what and who's
Yeah, in
painting.
perpetuity, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So, but so if you're interested in going, make sure to use the coupon. We have a coupon code, capital R, capital B, and capital O, 22, RBO 22, and that's going to take 30% off of the ticket price. So don't pay full price for the ticket; you'll get 30% off right away with the code. So I'm telling all people here watching this because it's something we can hook them up with.
Yeah,
We are totally down for doing.
I love hoarding demo videos. So like having a pass like this would be the equivalent of me hoarding demo
That's
videos.
all. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. is like there's this fine artist. His name is Eric Johnson. It's funny enough. Check this out.
Wait,
I think
Eric
he's from
Johnson?
Boston. I know he's from Boston, which is
No
hilarious
kidding.
because Eric Johnson, I think is from Boston.
Yeah.
Um, but he's a classical painter. So like we're talking site size, like
Yeah, yeah.
still incredible still lives, and he does figures, it does everything. So he's like he's got a great Instagram. You should check that out. But he's got a demo every day,
Whoa,
which is
really?
nuts. Yeah,
That's
and he
hustle.
posts just about everything about like why I use underpaintings or like um, controlling values or something like that. And so we have like there's all these topics like um, you and I we're going to be just discussing different ways of working, kind of like the bread and butter of what Livebrush is. And on Sunday I'm going to be talking about digital, like marrying traditional and digital
Dude,
workflows
that's good. I
together.
like that.
Yeah.
Tradigital. Tradigital. That's
Yeah.
good.
I think I think it was one of those things that either I heard about it or I thought
Invented it.
it. I invented it, and at the same time, so did a million other people.
I,
Probably like years before I did.
dude, first time I'm hearing it.
Invented it. I know. See, you heard it here first. It's a Livebrush exclusive.
Yeah. Dude, I like that.
So yeah, so I'm a big fan. You and I are big fans of that type
Yeah,
of
for
work.
sure. For sure.
Leveraging like
That's how
the
we
strength
prefer
of
to
that
work,
stuff.
really.
Dude. Seriously.
Use all the tools available to you.
Just every tool, every single tool. I mean everything. Especially like, I was thinking about the other day. I was reading about how like Norman Rockwell had like a month average to do all of his paintings,
Right.
like a
He's-
month.
He
for his
did a lot of
illustrations.
pieces, right?
He
But
did a
like
lot of
in the
pieces
end,
too,
yeah.
yeah. But I'm like, man, that's a nice deadline, right?
Oh yeah. I'd love that. Could I get that? That'd be great.
But this just doesn't happen anymore because technology moves. And I'm sure people back in the day, in the 19th century, were like, a month.
Oh
You want
yeah.
me to, do it while riding a horse too? you know.
I guess
So,
yeah, you do have to think about like it's all relative, right? Time was probably measured quite differently back then. A month was probably
yeah.
like I can't believe it. I'm already gonna need half of a month just to send you this painting.
Right. Exactly. It's too funny. Soon's Time said that watching your dragon last week inspired me to start a dragon piece, but anatomy's so hard.
Oh, nice. Well, you just gotta. My suggestion on anatomy stuff is to, if you want to do a dragon or I don't know any kind of creature, really, pick one that's real to base it on first. So a lot of times my dragons are based on mostly cat anatomy. So, if you want to just pick one like an alligator, say you want to base it on alligator and use that as your touchstone, and you can sort of start adding features to it. I tend to blend features, so I use a bunch of different animals. I'll use cats for like the body, and then usually bats or something like bats for the wings. But I've seen other artists use a variety of different creatures. So yeah, just try, that's a good. That's like the simplest way I can say to approach anatomy. But yeah, try and base it on
Yeah.
something first. It's really hard to make anatomy up out of nothing. So base it on reality first.
It's such a, I don't think I ever heard you explain it like that,
Oh yeah, I guess I should talk more about it in our streams. It's something I love to mess with, and but it's also one of those things I've never really like broken down my own method for. So I guess talking about it would be very useful for
Yeah.
me and to everyone else. But this is mostly just about
Tyler,
me.
Tyler, you mind bumping my mic up or
Oh yeah, yeah.
just a little
Do
bit?
you think you're
Or
quiet?
your mic down?
I'll push my mic
Is
away.
Tyler's mic up or I'm quiet? That's what I want to know.
Well, I push
Should
my
we just
mic.
mute Tyler?
I push my mic away from me. Hopefully that solves the issue.
Okay. You sound great on my end, but when I checked the stream, I forgot to do that earlier on.
Well, hopefully we're
Figure
good
out.
now. We'll see.
Yeah, we're probably good. I'm sure it was fine.
So yeah, I guess I should chat more about that kind of stuff. I'll have to because we could like dedicate. I could do like a whole creature design on an episode. We could just dedicate the whole episode to that.
To just like
To creature work.
creature design, just creature
Yeah.
work and like
Or
kind of
like at
the
least on my
starting of
end,
it.
right? I mean, I
Yeah.
know you don't have to join in. I was just saying like
I'm interested in it. I mean,
okay, cool.
I like, yeah, I love that stuff. I think that's really cool stuff, and um, I'm not as versed in it as you, obviously. I like environmental design.
Yeah,
That's
that's
also cool.
that's the shit I'm bad at. So we could talk about both.
We just,
Oof.
yeah, I don't know. You just say, okay, there's a building, boom, done.
Just drop it in. I think it's more
Great,
like
great.
the like value push. I'm never great with that. The atmospheric perspective and the subtlety of it. I'm pretty bad at that.
I find that hard to believe, but I'll take your
Well,
word
I mean,
for it.
I feel like I am. I'm not fishing for compliments here. Come on.
Yeah, you got a fishing license for. That's what I should ask you. You got a license for that fishing you're doing? Damn, I messed the joke up.
Yeah, dude. It's okay. It's all right. You totally did
We
though.
had on illustration isolation, which is every Thursdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. It's presented by Visual Arts Passage. Fine people over there. Run by Tim Trayvon and John English. They had we use like reference from different sources and things like that, and they had invited on a photographer who um, uh, Matthew Salacuse, who
Oh,
did
okay.
like who's done DMX. Um, he had a crazy DMX story. It was wild. And like all these celebrities. But his big thing is like he's gotten into comedy, and he befriended a bunch of comics and stuff, and they did a documentary on Netflix, or was it YouTube or Netflix? I forgot. It was on. I think it was on YouTube about like comics in the pandemic.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and like how they would have to have sets to like no audiences and stuff. How weird it
Right.
was.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Tough time.
and just burying the joke, it just made me me think about like we were talking about joke writing and things like that, and I wouldn't
I've,
make a good joke writer.
I've always been a huge fan of that, though, the craft of stand up. Um, I used to watch a
Yeah, me
lot of
too.
podcasts and interviews with comedians just to like hear about the process. It's always really interesting to me, like how to workshop
I think he's got
jokes
a.
and.
I think he's got a podcast with a bunch of those comedians.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be good. Check that out. Man, this is going to be interesting. I think everyone in the chat will be able to watch me battle subtle color shifts. Because I want the dragon's head piece. My hope is I can get a gradient from sort of blue and warm light up top down to very cold. And then I can do kind of a similar gradient in the background, but because it's clouds, it'll be all really, really hot clouds. That's the
That is,
plan.
it's so hard. That's
It's
so
real
hard to
hard.
do.
I know.
Yeah.
On the fly like
The reason,
this, it's gonna be difficult.
for those of you who don't realize, know why that's so hard, is because the values there are actually it's not a huge value difference between like the light and the shadow when you get there. Like you can make it super big, but really in nature, you really wouldn't see that, especially at that altitude. Um, so it's really tight, but the color shift. So you have to maintain values while changing colors. So like it's like a slight raising or a slight lowering of values. Like Chris Ron did that dragon piece. Remember it was like with the spotlight.
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
yeah, dude.
Dude, that thing was sick. And
He's an
so
absolute master of like value and color control. He's just
it was so tight
way
that
too
value
good at it.
control. I threw that in Photoshop and I was like, man, that is like needle's edge of just like
Yeah,
this one gradient.
it was, and the way he like controlled the form, like you could see the form where it began and ended so easily, but all the values were very tight together. It was
Yeah.
insane. It was insane.
Also, Ray Forel or Rye Forel said hello, first time chat. Hey, welcome. I was wondering. I was also looking at dragon anatomy. I was having issues picking up bases. I assume there must have been a correct animal to base them off of. I guess Rye had was just responding to your
Oh yeah, yeah.
the fact that you
So
do it off of cats as a basis.
I wouldn't say there is a correct one, but the one that works best for me with all the dragons that I've done is cat anatomy. Just for the body part, like the sort of really flexible mid body. That's sort of like can you would assume that if it's like a four limbed flying creature that it would need a very flexible body and very agile and lightweight, like you see in cats. So that's always where I start. The problem is like with other animals, it gets you really have to like push the anatomy out of whack. You know, when you see people paint dragons that are like heavily based on like lizard anatomy, when like you lift a lizard into the air, they look kind of silly. You know, the way their legs splay out because they're used to running. You know, they're creatures that run on the ground. And obviously cats don't fly, but they're very agile creatures. So you kind of I'm pushing from that angle. That's at least how I think about it. And if you're going to make it up, then there's a whole different set of rules you're going to have to play with. You know, like Todd Lockwood's dragons that he did for D&D, they're pretty iconic. But it's also a creature with a spinal cord that has 6 limbs. There's no examples of that on Earth. So he had to do some clever anatomy invention in order for it to work. You know, all creatures on Earth that have most of them anyways that are on land have a spinal cord and 4 limbs, but he's added in the sixth or the I guess fifth and sixth limbs being the wing shapes. So you have to like rearrange the anatomy up top They're in that case, you're gonna have to do some invention. But if you look at the bodies of his creatures, they're fairly cat or dog like in their overall structure.
Well, it just goes to show you, like, also just like how aware you have to be about that stuff. How it's not like, let me just look at other dragon art and try and make up come to some sort of conclusion of my own. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. There's a little bit. There's got to be a lot of intention in that situation.
yeah.
You look at like the work that Richard Taylor and the rest of all the amazing artists that were at Weta Workshop. All the creatures they had to design for the Lord of the Rings. That's all anatomy 101. It's all like next level anatomy, obviously, in execution, but they had to go back and look at everything, all the creatures they could find on Earth, to get good basis for all these monsters.
Was it What's the study? What's the scientist who studies birds? Oh my God,
Oh, I don't know.
why am I blanking? What's a name for one? Not avian. Maybe the chat can help out.
Oh, a scientist that studies birds.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I mean it's probably something based on avian.
yeah. Well, one of the concept artists was like a former, like somebody who, former scientist. I think he would have battles with John Howe
Oh yeah, yeah.
about like
That's right. Oh no, I remember what you're talking about. The battle they
yeah,
had over the
the spikes.
yeah. So the what Ray's referring to is in the Lord of the Rings, they Weta developed this creature that Tolkien described, the Fell Beast, and they went in a very different direction than I guess what Tolkien described, but they had to create a big flying creature, and they based it off of one of John Howe's paintings, but the concept artist added so the wings are basically bat wings, right? And he added one of the big spikes coming off the elbow in the wing form. Like if you're looking at my dragon wing here, he added like a big spike coming off the elbow in order to support the wing structure. But because bat wings are based on human hands, like they're based on they're not based on human hands, but they're based on like common ancestry. So we all have a hand shape, and theirs is evolved out into very vastly different shape. But the dragon itself that they were using they were doing the bat wings, and then they were adding the spikes. And John Howe was like, no, you couldn't. The wing wouldn't function that way. You can't have a spike coming off the elbow. There's no
Well,
analog for
I
that.
think the botanist, or I mean not the botanist, but the
Oh
scientist
wait, yeah,
who
yeah. Sorry, I'm
told
mixing it up. The scientist was
yeah,
like, yeah, you can't do it that
John
way.
Howe thought it was
And
John Howe said he told him to shut up and thought he looked cool. It looked cool.
yeah,
So
that was his response. Was I think it looks cool, so we do it. And that there is another great example of when cool is king. And you should always use that in concept work. Even if you're basing it off a cat anatomy, it's not going to be so cool if you make it like exactly like a cat. So whatever the coolest solution is should take precedence over the cat anatomy.
we got another. Hey, Lord Durnbull, what's up, man? Um, we got another first time chat. It's crazy, back to
All
back.
right.
Um, Gavlan says, "Hey everyone, Tyler, I'm a huge fan of your work, especially love the colors of it. So, what
Thank you.
masters
Thank you.
have you learned from about colors? Would love to hear about it."
Oh boy. Uh, I learned from Ray Bonilla. Let's be perfectly honest. Every time, like we both learned, I guess, about color in the same way in school. Although
Yeah,
I couldn't grasp it forever. And so for many years when I was out of school, I was constantly bugging Ray to help me adjust colors on my paintings. So yeah, I learned color from Ray. Who'd you learn color from, Ray? In extension.
two people, two people. One was Cameron Watson, and who taught color theory course. It like gave me kind of like the color mixing uh, basis.
God, I wish I
Because
would have
by the way,
taken
I
that.
was for those of you who don't know, Tyler knows this, but I was horrible at color. People told me that was actually my weakness, one of my greatest weakness.
And
And
yet
some
you
people,
overcame. It's a real
yeah, right.
Rocky story here, folks.
One person told me that I should look into the tonalist, like being a tonalist, which is just like working in pure value. Uh,
It's not very
and I'm
nice.
sure other people, yeah, well, they're just trying to be helpful, I guess. Uh, so, and then the second person who really like Cameron gave me the fundamentals to understand um, how color works, like on a color mixing level, because
Yeah.
we mix a ton of color. And then the person who helped me like really just put everything together, because even though we went through it with Cameron, I wasn't ready for all of it. So Bill Mon was the one that really kind of who taught Cameron color. Um, really put everything together. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like completed the circle, if you will. So, and then ever since that, it's been that's it. So yeah, so Tyler, the story goes for those of you who don't know. Tyler and I would hang out after. Well, we had studios next to each other in grad school, and then when we graduated, I moved back to the East Coast, and Tyler stayed uh, in the West Coast, and so we would chat, hang out over Skype, and we'd send each other our own work back, each other's work back and forth for feedback. Like we do paint overs of everything, and Tyler would usually have color questions, and I would always have design and like drawing questions. And so, Tyler was a huge drawing instructor for me, understanding how to like, especially to think about like creating anatomy and how that kind of fits together and how you have to kind of think about things from the inside out, really sculptural stuff and anatomy specifically too. So I
See,
won out on that one.
see, this is how
You
artists
know,
should work together, though. We gotta lean on each other and help and ask each other for help.
yeah.
Don't work in a vacuum,
So
folks.
yeah, don't work in a vacuum. Don't work in a vacuum. Yeah. So it's yeah. I remember thinking about isn't it just, like sometimes I go back to think about how I thought about drawing, and I was just really far behind on everything, so it wasn't. It took me a long time to kind of catch up skill wise, and drawing was like I was so afraid of. I never really thought about it like I do now. Like very sculpturally. You know, I think about plane. I'm really aware of plane changes and things like that, and how light affects it, and you
Yeah.
know, kind of contextualizes what we had. People like Zhang Wu taught us, and like feedback I got from artists like Rob Rupel. Um, you just learn. I think Alberto Ray. Chico, um, from recently retired actually
Yeah.
from
Yeah. Dude's
uh,
awesome.
State University of New York, Fredonia, um, where I used to teach. He had told me one time when I was a student, because he was a teacher of mine. Um, he had said that you're going to learn more outside of school than inside school. And I was like, that's ridiculous. I'm learning so much. But
And it
I
is
think it's true. It's
100%
just an
true.
evolution. Like, yeah, you're taking like what you learned in school and just growing it, and you go in different directions and stuff. Um,
It's just so true, though. I mean, we both learned a lot in school, but man, once we were out, that's where like the learning curve spiked. You had to know, you had to learn fast.
yeah, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. You had to learn fast. I felt that way in school, and then I felt that way, especially in the field. Just like you got to get better. Like there's no excuse anymore. Like you have to compete now. Um, good times, very stressful times,
Yeah,
but
it's
good
just
times.
you can make a lot of mistakes in school, which once you're out in the wild, you can't make them so much anymore.
No, no, you can't. No, people aren't as forgiving.
Yeah, it's just like, and it's
Um,
not like oh man, all these people are going to be so mean, and art directors or gallery reps are going to be just brutal. But it's less that, and it's more like they're just professionals trying to get the work done. And if you can't provide the work needed to like an art director or something, they're just gonna be like, well, I'm just not gonna work with that artist because they burned me.
Yeah.
So it's just something you have to be aware of in that respect.
Yeah, really, really simple. I mean, just it's very straightforward. I actually really appreciate that about, especially like about the working as an artist and like how working with galleries and or art directors. It's like do good work. Be a professional. Um, if you have an ego, throw it out, leave it at the door,
Yeah. God,
and
that. Unfortunately, that is a lesson that should be learned in art school, but doesn't often
yeah,
get learned by too many people.
no, no, no. But hey, so we have two. Look at this. Okay, check this out.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me.
Back to back, to back to back. First time chats.
No way.
Four.
Dang, that's fantastic.
So Illustrated Pixel. What's up, guys? Hey, welcome, welcome. And then Rick Hefner Design. Uh, hey, Tyler, how do you manage to get that traditional feel in your digital work? Do you have some brushes up somewhere?
I would say it's less brushes. I do have. I don't have any brushes up anywhere because my brushes are so simple. I'm always like embarrassed to even show them or talk about them. Use like three different brushes. So for me to get a more painterly look, it's all about how I deal with edges, edge control. When I want, because I trained in oils. Both Ray and I trained in oils. Ray does oils all the time, and I moved into digital. But because I trained that way, that's kind of how I think. And so the way I would paint in oils is the same thinking. I'm just like, okay, I want a softer edge here. I want a tighter edge here. So I do that in digital. I just there's a little less sort of wet and wet that you can do. So I kind of have to lean on. I'd say I have like a soft, feathery texture brush, and then I have like a round, and then I might have I think I have a more like feathery, bristly looking brush. Is like the three that I mostly use. So I'll pick one of those brushes depending on the edge control that I want to deal with. But yeah, honestly, I think to get a more painterly look, it is mostly about how edges are handled. And so
Yeah,
try and
it's so true.
yeah, trying to like if that's something you're struggling with, like look at a lot of oil painters and um, I learned edge control from Zhao Ming Wu, so look at Zhao Ming Wu's paintings and try to dissect what he's really doing when he is controlling his edge work.
And one thing I would add too is like I would what Tyler said about edges is like how do you create those things in a given medium? Because like there's a different way to create soft edges in pencil as or charcoal as opposed to oil paint as opposed to gouache and acrylic. There's some you can get like with acrylics you can kind of get that extra edge control. You just got to be fast about it because it dries so fast. Um, but with oils, it's a very specific kind of hand movement, and so when you're used to seeing that, like it's easily replicated digitally. Um, but I would recommend getting those paintings, like looking at also like a lot of classical illustrators from the 20s, 30s, who were like using oil paint,
Mm-hmm.
and then pick your favorite one, and I would copy it, do a digital copy of a traditional piece, and that will really force you to understand how to get those edges. And I usually don't like I'm not a big into copying just because I would just rather do studies from references either from life or from photography. But like I found that when I was learning digital, Tyler showed me kind of like the process he follows, and it was identical to how we thought about oil paint. And so to get my hand working right, to understand how much to sample back and forth, and how to like what to develop the touch. I copied a bunch of old school illustrations, and didn't take long. You know, I was off to the races after that.
Yeah, it's so useful. It's like I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, you should never copy," and I totally disagree. I didn't do a ton of them. We did some in school, maybe, but when I grew up, I just copied comics, and it gave me a feel for like energy and movement and drawing, all that kind of stuff. I learned a lot when I was younger. So there's just such a huge value in that kind of practice. I remember chatting with a friend, Lucas Graciano, which Ray, you know Lucas.
God, man, yeah,
He he did
he's one of
when
those people. I wish he was like into architectural visualization or something. Like my ego kicked in seeing his
yeah.
pieces
Get out of here.
sometimes. You know what I mean? Yeah, but
Yeah,
he's great. He's great.
but
I love his stuff, man.
he had a piece hanging in Watts, that the Watts Atelier School. He that was a copy of I forget the piece he copied. It was like one of those like Orientalist paintings, where they're like painting soldiers in the Middle East, but
Yeah,
it was like back in the day.
yeah,
So
yeah.
he was painting it. It was one of those paintings. Man, I wish I could remember which one it was. But anyways, he said that just the act of doing that taught him everything you need to know about like color mixing and all this stuff that he was struggling with. He said just the act of getting in there and doing this copy taught him so much about painting that it was like a huge eye opener for him. So yeah, try it out,
Dude,
folks.
that's what I'm talking about. And when you get to a point where you understand about, like, if you do enough painting, you understand how a painting was painted by looking at it. Like, you have at
Yeah,
least a good idea. At least certain paintings I know, like, I can understand, like, oh, this was layered. This looks like, maybe not like the step by step was like, okay, but, you get the basic, idea. You understand how to, deconstruct the layers that you're seeing in front of you. So, studying those paintings too, like Tyler was saying too, is like you got to do them all in concert with each other. But yeah, it's a great question.
I've got. I mean,
We
I've
could,
got two examples of that studying them that were eye openers for me, and it was less about studying the digital file of the piece or like a print, and more about like seeing them in person. But
yeah,
number
yeah,
one is um, John Singer Sargent. When you see his paintings in person, you realize like a lot of his darks he put on afterwards, like at the end.
yeah,
And then the other is Norman Rockwell's. When you look at him, you see how thick his whites are. His whites are all most of his as his paintings approach lighter values. His paint gets crazy thick. So those are like big eye openers as to how to apply paint. Thick whites is really great for dimensionality and brightness, and there's just so much going on there.
yeah.
But
And
yeah,
there's also
those
like
are huge.
a freshness to you. You kind of see how Sargent layered things. He was a very slow painter, by all accounts. He was very methodical. But you can kind of see like how delicate like he would put that dark down over like a middle tone, like a
Yeah,
dark accent or something like that. It was really beautiful, like how, yeah. But you can only really see it. You got to see it. The problem with JPEGs high res, you can see it, but you can't see it at scale. If that
yeah,
makes
and
sense.
you might not know what you're seeing, right? Because
Yeah,
sometimes when the paint goes down, there's like different qualities to like it. For me, it's so obvious when like a dark paint has been painted over lighter values when I see it in person, but
right.
it's not necessarily as obvious when I'm seeing it in print.
Yeah, and even like just uh, with yeah with you realize just with just general scale, like, oh my goodness, this thing was huge. So like reduced down to like 9 by 12 or however large your piece is, your screen is, or your print is, it's it's not even close to how big, how big it was. So like when you see it, you're like, that's really simple,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. Um,
I had that huge
so
awakening
yeah,
with the Washington crossing the Delaware in the Met.
dude, right?
It's so
That thing
big.
is, it's so big.
They're
It's
light. I
so
don't know
big.
if any folks in the chat, if you've ever seen the Washington crossing the Delaware in the Met, those guys on that boat are life size. They're like
Yeah.
Washington is easily like 6'7" or whatever his actual
Yeah,
natural height was. He's
yeah.
absolutely enormous.
The painting's gigantic.
Yeah,
It takes up an entire room at the Met,
it's so
and
good.
and the frame is equally as epic.
Yeah, the frames. Yeah, man, it's got to be like a foot wide, if not more.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Um,
It's not historically accurate though.
I gotta get into that. I'm just gonna. I'll get it. Hold on. Give me a second on this. I'm gonna catch up on the chat. Nick DeLuca, 96. What's up, Nick? Uh, thanks so much. Really kind words. I appreciate it. You did all the work. Rick Hefner Design. How do you spell Xiaoming Wu? Oh, Aaron Rufino is
Thanks for the
is in
link.
the chat with the links.
Thanks, Aaron.
Um,
Appreciate it.
yeah. Hey, check it out. The new announcement, Tyler. Moobot.
Hey, Mubot. Okay, so it is like quantity. It's the amount of people chatting that brings
Just
up
keep
the
slamming the
Mubot.
chat.
Come on, guys,
Awaken the
just
Moobot.
nail it. Nail the chat.
Zeph in the chat if you want to see the Moobot. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, thanks for the link, Aaron. Yeah. Um, yeah, yeah, we could talk more about like experiencing art and stuff. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm
you
not
know.
trying to be like, gosh, if you only have prints, well, you're never gonna learn anything. That's not true. You're
No,
gonna learn a lot,
and
but it's
yeah, you're
always
gonna learn a
make
lot.
whenever you can get the funds together or whatever, make those pilgrimages to art collections in person. This is very
Yeah.
valuable.
It's very yeah, and there's without saying too much, there are things coming in technology also that are helping. They're going to help like make it the next best thing to
Right,
experiencing art as
100%.
well. You know,
That is for sure true.
yeah, and so yeah, but dude, okay, Washington crossing the Delaware.
Yeah.
I remember sitting. Where was I? I think I was in D.C. Okay,
Oh shit. Okay.
and I was watching the news. All right. And they talked about how they came out. This artist, oh my goodness, I'm blanking. He was an illustrator who did a bunch of historical stuff for National Geographic, and then he turned more fine art. And he had done. They talked about how he got commissioned to do the most accurate depiction of Washington crossing the Delaware.
Oh yeah, I think I remember you telling me about this.
Yeah, and listen, like there's a lot of figures, a lot of references. You know, I'm not. I don't want to.
Cool as
I don't want
king,
to talk
man.
shit about it.
Cool as king.
Cool is king. I'll just say
And
that. Yeah,
super historically accurate sometimes. Isn't
is
cool.
is not isn't cool. It isn't cool. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
like you guys ruined it.
I know. Well, and here's the thing, the piece was cool and it was technically executed very nicely. But
Yeah, yeah,
and it
yeah,
was
yeah,
nice. It
yeah,
was like a pretty image and everything. But
yeah,
when
yeah,
when
yeah,
you
yeah,
lay down
yeah,
that
for
many
sure.
constraints, it becomes the piece starts to become stiff and stale, right? It that's the problem. Like getting
Yeah,
all those little tiny things right, you tend to lose a little bit of the heart in the piece.
and it
Whereas
wasn't. It wasn't that big. Was it. It wasn't nearly as big as the.
no, no,
I mean,
no.
that would have taken
But it's
someone. Yeah,
I don't know. It's like also like kind of defeating the purpose of that. That Washington Cross and Delaware painting was painted as like political propaganda,
right.
and the whole point was for it to be allegorical. It's not supposed to be a historical image. It's supposed to be an image that either I was saying propaganda. It's either it's meant to raise people's spirits, right? Inspire them. It's not meant to be
Yeah,
like this is exactly how it happened. I
it
mean, I
was.
don't
It
know.
was a
Yeah.
movie poster. It was.
Mm-hmm.
It was an illustration.
Yeah, it was a movie poster. It was an illustration, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. It told the story about. It was a narrative painting that told a story about Washington crossing the Delaware. I mean, like they don't need, Yeah,
Well,
I
it's sort
digress.
of. Have you
But cool as
seen?
king.
There's a great show I've watched a million times because I love it. It's it's John Adams on HBO. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's
Oh,
amazing.
with Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's a scene in that in like the late. There's only 7 episodes.
yeah,
So it's a miniseries.
yeah. I love that scene. I love that scene.
Yeah.
Describe
So
it.
there's a scene where
Describe it.
he's
Yeah.
getting really upset with an artist for painting the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and his upsetness, like he's getting upset with the artist because it's not historically accurate. He's like, nobody was there all at once, and we were running in and out, and there was a war going on, and the artist is like, well, I took some license, and the artist is right in this scenario. Like old man John Adams, old curmudgeon John Adams is wrong. The whole point of this image is to inspire people. It's not historically accurate. It's propaganda essentially. So, and it made for a better image. Obviously you can't. The whole point of painting this illustration was to paint them signing the Declaration of Independence. Not you can't do that by just depicting the actual events because, like John Adams said, nobody was all there all at the same time. So
Right.
you have to take those licenses in order to make a really cool image.
Do you think that? I mean, that is the only way to visualize the past before photographs or photography was like if a photograph didn't capture that moment. So like you have to be able to, but even photographs don't capture the feeling of the moment.
Right. I think that's
You
why they
know,
were doing it.
not
Right.
all of
Like,
them do. I should say, yeah. That's why they're
yeah.
painting it. Yeah,
Or and it's why when you see
just
those
doesn't.
first photographs, they're really stale and weird. But then, like
Right.
some of the heart starts to come into it as the technology gets better and better. So, like
Yeah.
like back the historical paintings like that were always done. Like for example, again that signing the Declaration of Independence, it was done like 40 years after the event. So
Right.
there's no way you're going to have any accuracy in that. From a historical standpoint, it's just not going to happen. There's no history that's ever accurate when it's done that long after an event. So, yeah, I think that's how they existed, right? They were the photographs of the day, and the things that they had to achieve the goals were different. The goals were, you know, let's celebrate this moment like in a legendary way.
Yeah, and I think that training now is like where fantasy art is and visual development is.
Sorry, my
It's
dog
like it
is
never went away.
whining. You could probably hear it on the
The
audio
dogs
pretty
were
bad. Shh.
probably because
It's dinner time for her, and she's like, I need to eat.
uh,
Anyway, she'll be adding to the audio for a little bit.
she was upset at the Washington crossing in Delaware wasn't
Yeah. She's like, that guy is
accurate.
a jerk. She's not a big fan of George
Uh,
Washington. I gotta tell you, she's not a patriot.
So, okay, Aaron Fino has a great question. I'm going to get to that after I say Alec Hamilton has a link to there's an option to look at that painting in augmented reality. That's pretty cool.
Oh, great. That's way cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, you can see the size, Seeing the size, I think that is like, to me,
Yeah.
that's everything.
That was
That, to me,
the
it's
same for me for all, like, a lot of the paintings I finally saw in person. It was like, holy crap, this thing's huge.
yeah, and
Or,
it's like
or
okay, the
this thing's small.
brushstrokes the size of my head,
Yeah.
like holy crap! When I step back, it didn't need to be noodled; it was just there. So
Or in like the
uh,
case of the Mona Lisa, it's like, holy smokes, that thing is small. What the
yeah,
hell?
yeah. Props to Da Vinci. That's small, and those painters back in those days, man, when they would paint small, it was like incredible. Like just fidelity they were getting at such a small scale. Even those
Plus,
Charles
in
Bart
his.
paintings in the 19th century too. But
Oh, yeah, yeah, those little ones. I was going to say in Da Vinci's time that, oil paint was not as widely available, and you kind of had to paint small.
right.
You know, I mean, a little bit
Um,
after him. You know, when you get to like Caravaggio and stuff, they're semi contemporaries, right? You know, we're talking decades of separation,
but they were
maybe
they
even
were
about a
strolling
hundred
around.
years.
They were strolling around Florence at the same time, though. Like they ran across. Like
Oh
they
yeah,
were in the same
like,
space.
but their ages, right? Like, I mean, wasn't Da
Yeah,
Vinci
yeah.
like fairly
He
old by
was
the time
super old.
Caravaggio?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Super old, much
So
older.
the technology advanced for sure
Yeah, yeah.
around them, but you're also talking like Da Vinci was a mostly an inventor, really not hugely a painter.
Right. Yeah, like he tinkers with things.
That was amazing to me seeing the size of that kind of stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah. Um, Aaron says, question: do you have a particular work/artist you'd make a pilgrimage to see in person? That's a great.
I do.
That's a great
What
one.
about you,
I
man?
do, dude. You know what? I need to go. Well, I did. Well, like I'm a huge Tyler knows, huge fan of like golden age illustration, especially Brandywine School type of stuff, art. Howard Pyle and C. Wyeth,
Yeah,
Harvey Dunn, you know, list goes on. I've never been to the Brandywine Museum,
that
the
was
Delaware
my
Art Museum.
so that was my first. That was the first one that popped into my head was the Brandywine.
Yeah,
I
I need
would
to do
love
that.
to, but I have a runner up, and I don't know how possible this will be this day and age. Is Eli Rippon's work. I think I'd have to
Dude,
go into Russia and see it all, but
I would love to
I
go.
would
Listen,
love to see
we'll
it.
go together. We'll go to St. Petersburg.
We'll fight Putin just to get in.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
He'll be
And
fine.
it's dude. I've so my good buddy of mine's um, is a painter, uh, and so he talked about his wife's from Russia, and he went through. He said that when they were dating, and things were getting serious, she brought him to Russia to meet all of her family, and it was like he got to go see. She took him to St. Petersburg. It's like, oh, you're an artist. Let's
Oh,
see Russian art, and he saw everything,
all the best
Tyler.
stuff. All the best
Everything,
stuff.
everything. And I remember at the time, I was really into like the reppin all of those artists,
Yeah.
um, and we were talking about all these paintings, and the one painting we talked about was the people dragging the ship,
Oh man, I love that one.
onto the shore, and he was
Yeah.
like, "I saw that one. Yeah, I saw that one. That thing's huge."
Get out of here,
Uh,
dude.
and I was like, "We were," and it was the first time I met his girlfriend, now his wife, but it's they. She was like, "This guy knows what he's talking about. This is it. He knows the stuff. It's good stuff. You know the good stuff." And I was
I mean
like,
that museum in St. Petersburg is legend. And I would love to go to that place.
"Dude,
It
I
has
would
just got everything.
love to go there."
Some of the best artists that
You
have
know?
ever lived are in that museum.
Yeah. And I will say also, Jose Dorsey in Paris, he's like
Oh yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
one of
I've
the
been there.
one museum. That's like one of the museums that I walked into, and I've had this in the Met, but only in specific rooms. But the museum, like walking into the museum, it was the first time that I walked into the museum, and it was like, "Welcome home, Ray." You're like,
Yeah.
"Hey,
Yeah.
what's up?" Like you really felt like I felt like I belonged. Like it was everyone, like all the people that I loved, were there,
Yeah.
and they
It's
had a bunch
better
of Russian stuff.
it's better than the Louvre. D'Orsay. It's better than the Louvre.
It's more my flavor, I mean, there's Lou's got some killer stuff. I mean, but it's more my flavor of artists. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm
you
just
know,
gonna say it. Like, I liked it more than the Louvre. It's better. No offense. If there's any
my
Louvre, if there's any
it's
curators
my
from the
opinion. It's
Louvre in the chat
objectively
right
better.
now, it's just my opinion. I think it's better.
If there's any
If I were
Louvre,
rating it,
if there's
I would
any,
grade it better.
there you go. If there's any Louvre
Yeah.
curators, that was Tyler Jacobson saying that.
Hell,
I
I'm
love
saying
the
it.
museum, and I wouldn't mind a free tour. a private tour of it.
I
So
love it too, and I would love a private tour. But I
no, you
think that
don't.
I think the
But
Rijksmuseum's better.
not as much as a tour of Musée d'Orsay. You know,
I mean, we gotta at least be able to say like if we think a museum is better than another museum. Come on.
you got to say like it's enjoyable though. Like better is it, but it's not like if you're into pre-Renaissance or Renaissance
Oh,
paintings,
sure, yeah,
like
yeah,
if that's your thing, you ain't gonna like d'Orsay.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
just like
yeah.
okay, whatever. It's like a 100-year time frame here, and I don't like any of these people.
Yeah, I get that
Um,
feeling when I'm at a museum that's kind of covering a broad, variety of work. Like this is all the work that was done in, this country, and I'm in their country, and but when it's like, oh, now it's like, early medieval stuff. I'm not really into it. They hadn't figured it out yet. That kind of,
yeah, you
yeah,
know, their goals were their aesthetic goals were much different. You know,
yeah, yeah,
uh, and so yeah, I mean, I remember I went to travel around Italy with a bunch of art historians, and they loved medieval stuff. And it was like, if I have to see another Madonna and Child
yeah, yeah,
with bad anatomy, this is how like I got. I mean, I knew it's all about this. The style was different, the aim was different. Everything it's about spirituality. Figures were designed a certain way. That was like a different aesthetic. I get it,
yeah, yeah,
but like it would just it just kind of drains me to see that stuff sometimes because I could see the importance of it. There's a lot of beauty in it aesthetically and stuff, but like
yeah. I
yeah, and
understand the historical
there's some,
context. I'm just like tired
yeah,
of seeing it.
yeah. It's a, yeah, like Tyler was saying, it's like progress had been made. People were learning things. Things were being discovered. You know, so like I see the 19th century and I'm like, hey, and I would like bolt towards a painting that you know, they had like this one Bouguereau, and I was like, huh! Just like
Yeah, yeah.
jumped the turnstile to go see. I'm like, thank you.
I was like that.
Yeah.
There's that museum at the Glendale. Um, it's at the where is it the Glendale Cemetery. There's a museum at the top,
Oh man,
and
dude,
there's a Bouguereau in
that
there.
museum was good.
It's just a
Yeah, like
Bouguereau
one
in the
of the
back.
Bouguereaus, one of the Bouguereaus, the
Yeah,
one with those are no Bouguereau. The Glendale Museum, is it Forest Lawn? Is that what it's called?
I
Or
think
am I
so.
making
Yeah,
that up?
it's in the
Um,
cemetery. It's in
it's in
the
the
Glendale
cemetery.
Cemetery.
Yeah, yeah, it's in the Glendale Cemetery in Los Angeles, um, and in the LA area, I should say. Right? I mean, is Glendale a suburb of Los Angeles? I'm not
It's
familiar.
its own city. Yeah, it's
Okay,
not
it's its
Los
own
Angeles
city. So
proper. Yeah.
in 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 Southern California, right? And so it's in yeah, it's in a cemetery, and the person
Yeah,
that
it's at the top.
owned the cemetery built a museum that houses collection of paintings. So cemetery business must have been really good for him. Um,
Hey, probably is good
so the
business.
Bouguereau that he had, I know, like yeah, right, yeah, that sells. The Bouguereau that he had was the Bouguereau with it was Madonna and Child with angels, and the angels had violins.
Yes, yes.
And man, that painting, I've seen it in pictures, but to see it in real life is like it looked like a movie still,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and also in that room on the back wall is so the doors of the Duomo in Florence are not the doors of the Duomo in Florence. They're replicas. The real ones are in museums. I think the real ones are in there's an indoor museum in Florence, and they're
Right.
in there. But there are like four sets of replicas of those doors, and one of them, just one of the doors, I think the right or the left door, is at that museum in Glendale.
Randomly.
Yeah, just
Randomly.
sitting there.
Tyler was like, That's the that's the door to the Duomo."
Yeah,
She
just
was
sitting
like,
in the back.
"What?"
So
Just sitting there.
strange.
Yeah, It was wild, man. It was wild. And they had like a gigantic painting that they had commissioned, and it was like this whole thing, and
And the giant painting
it
too
was,
next door, the most incredible painting I think
yeah,
I've ever
it's like
seen.
it was, yeah, it was. Oh,
Check that out. I don't
yeah,
want to
this is
give
not.
that part away, but there's a
I'm not.
100,
Yeah, it was for the. It
110
was
foot
painted for
wide
the.
painting. Check that
Yeah,
out.
100. Yeah, 110 foot long painting, painted for the Pan American Exposition in Chicago, I think, if I'm correct.
Right, right. Yeah.
Um, and that's it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. If you go there, go check that out. Don't just go to the
That's one
museum,
of the
go
best
next
paintings.
door.
Would you say that's one of the best paintings you've ever seen? I would say
100%.
for myself.
100%. Yeah. That 110 foot wide painting blew me away. I had no idea it was going to be that good. I thought it was just
Yeah,
going to
because
be,
people told us about it. People
yeah,
told us about it,
thought it was
and I
just going
was
to be
like,
another one of
okay,
those kinds of pieces.
yeah, like, hey, this is awesome. Look how big this is. This is great, you know. And this is only important because the owner paid a lot of money for it, and it's a great. It had a great story behind it too, you know. It was long, you know. You have to go see it, but it's, dude, that painting was
It was great.
worth the wait,
Yeah, you had
worth
to
all of that.
unnecessarily wait for it. Yeah. There was a
You
lot of
know that was
weirdness in theater built around it.
yeah, it was a theater. They built a theater around.
Well, and the theatrics
It
of
was a
like
house.
showing you the painting was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They built a theater just to house the painting, and you sit in theater seats.
Yeah, and it's behind a curtain, so you can't just sit there and look at it. You have to like watch the
Right.
presentation.
You gotta watch the whole
So
thing.
dumb. It's like just have the painting on a wall.
Oh God. It was so big they had to transport it, like they had to roll it up on a telephone pole.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
But all right. So you that was like an epic art day that we had. And that was
yeah.
part
That
of a
was
trip that we
that was the
yeah,
Strusen show.
Drew Struzan and Bob Peak show. They had a Drew Struzan and Bob Peak original show. You know,
That was mind
and
blowing.
then yeah, it was pretty wild, you know. Um, I mean, we saw like Temple of Doom, right? I mean, like
Yeah, I mean the lineup of Strusen
all the
pieces was Revenge of the Jedi was there, the original, before they changed the name. Anyone who corrects me in the chat, I'm just going to jump in front of that.
oh yeah, that's right.
Revenge of the Jedi.
Yeah, they had the
Temple of
Revenge of the
Doom,
Jedi poster.
the
Yep.
Potter covers, the two Potter posters that he did for Harry Potter, the Hellboy original Hellboy poster, and the Hellboy 2 like special edition poster that he did. Pan's Labyrinth poster. What
That's
else was in
right.
there? Hook was in there. That was mind blowing.
Yeah, Hook was in
We weren't
there.
allowed to take
Yeah.
pictures, but I had my phone. I put my phone in my like front pocket of my shirt and was taking like blurry photos that way. Did they
I
have Big
tried to,
Trouble?
and it just
Did they
didn't
have Big
work.
Trouble? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
They must not have because I would have remembered that. It's one of my favorite movies
Well,
of
no,
all
I mean,
time.
because I honestly, I was gonna say I'm probably the worst person. I'm the wrong person to ask because I forgot that they had Hook.
Oh, okay.
Did,
They had
did
Hook.
they have? They had the Blade Runner, right? Did they have the Blade Runner? One of the Blade Runners that he
They
did,
had
like
the
the
Blade Runner that he
special
did for the
edition.
special edition DVD release because his
Right.
original Blade Runner that
It was a comp.
didn't make the cut. Yeah, it was only a comp, so I don't
Yeah.
think he ever used it. But the special edition one he did at one sheet size.
Yeah, that was cool. I did the whole, you know, like
In
I
the
mean, I like
chat,
Bob
if you
Pete's art.
folks don't know what one sheet size is, it's the standard format for movie posters back then. I think it still is now, but it's 27 inches by 41 inches. Very strange
Yeah.
format.
And so
Oh, hey, Victor.
um,
Hello, Victor.
Victor Murray said, "Y'all talking about the painting at Forest Lawn Cemetery?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we are.
yeah, man.
We're trying not to give it
That
away because we want the chat to like go there and check it out. But it's
you
so
know what's
cool.
funny is that everyone that we talked to, because Tyler and I we were at it both in a show at the Society of Illustrators West,
Yeah.
Society of Illustrators of Los Angeles, and so we
was
were
a hell
talking
of a
to all these
trip.
artists, and they were we were like, we're gonna go to the Forest Lawn Cemetery, and they were like, everyone was telling us
Yeah.
about this painting, but they all told us they didn't. None of them like divulged everything about the painting. It's like, you got to just see it.
Yeah,
You just got to
it's
see it.
because you can't really describe it. I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
Victor's amazing artist. Everybody, check out. Feel free to throw your link to your work in the chat if you want, Victor. But the yeah, it's absolutely epic is correct, and and it's actually good. That was my exact feeling because I was like, oh, it's gonna be. Without, again, I don't want to give the painting away, but it's like, oh, it's gonna be one of those kind of paintings. Here we go, and then I get in there, I'm like, whoa, what? This is nuts.
Yeah. That's nuts.
It's so good, and it's all these different story moments kind of packed into one image, and they're all kind of spotlighted, but the value control is so strong,
It's
like
so
where the
good.
actual
It's so
focal
good.
point is. It's
There's
amazing.
I think that like tied with that, um, I would say like paintings. I was thinking about that. Like, what are some paintings that I first like when I saw, I was like, that's one of the greatest pieces of artwork I've ever seen, or greatest pieces of painting, like figurative painting that we do, like that stuff. Like, oh my god, I can't believe that that bar is possible. The only other time I felt that was, I think it's at the in Paris at the Parthenon, I think it's called, or Pantheon. Parthenon, Pantheon.
I don't know.
Um,
Parthenon's in Greece, and the Pantheon's in
oh,
Rome.
so I think it's, oh my god, Victor Hugo's buried there.
Oh, I know what you're
All these
talking about.
people,
I can't remember the name, but I know what you're talking about.
dude. I'm like blanking on this, and I always mess that up. Um, so they have all these murals, and like um, I think it's like Saint Denis. It was like the headless saint. You ever hear about that?
Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
Like, right. So there's this mural on that Leon Bonnat, who was like one of the head artists at the École des Beaux Arts, painted. Is epic. It's like, Saint Denis, like he's beheaded, and he's like gesturing towards the
Yeah, yeah.
executioner, yeah,
It's
and he's just
intense.
freaking out. But then there was this huge painting, and I can't remember for the life of me the artist, but it was called The Death of Saint Catherine, and that was one of the best pieces of art.
Oh wow.
That rivals that painting that we saw.
I gotta see
And
that.
I
I
just
gotta
remember
see that.
thinking about like Forest Lawn. I'm like, man, I can't believe there's another painting this good that I've never heard of. Like, I've just never. Um,
That's what I love. Like, I love that. I mean, first of all, I like this listing this competition here. This of the paintings that really blew us away. This is cool because I've got a few. But I like that discovering a piece that's really really incredible in a museum that I'd never even heard of. That is such a fun experience.
yeah.
I guess for
So,
me, mine would be I want to say the one that really blew me away was seeing that painting that Sargent did of like King George. It's in the Boston Art Museum.
oh yeah, with the big
It's like
sword.
14 feet tall or something, and yeah, and he's got
Yeah.
like the full gown on, and he's got the big gold gilded sword in a scabbard. That painting blew my mind when I it's like on
Yeah.
the when you walk into that room in Boston, it's on the other side of the wall. So you walk into the room and it's like a whole bunch of big hits of John Singer Sargent. You're like, oh man, that's amazing. That's a great Sargent. That's amazing. And then you walk on the other side of the wall and it takes up the other side of the wall, and it's just mind
Yeah, a whole,
boggling.
this is basically that painting.
Yeah,
Um, it's at the MFA.
right, right. It's just mind
Yeah,
blowing. I was blown away.
that's a nutty painting. There's so many other paintings like, oh man, like, see that? Like, I hated the art viewing experience of it, but the Eleanor, sorry, the oh my god, dude, I'm blanking on names today.
Yeah, this is unusual. This is not Ray. This is not Ray's normal Ray.
This is
This
this
is
is
somebody else.
I know this is like, document. A little dehydrated or something. Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum.
Yes.
There,
Oh,
there it is.
yes.
It's got some of the best pieces, like examples of like painterly realism in 19th century, Zorn, Sargent. The list goes on. Dennis Miller Bunker, so on and so forth. Horrible art viewing experience.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I would give it an F minus on the
Well,
art viewing experience.
it's
But
because of
there's a whole
like
reason
the
why.
right, the whole way it had to be kept. It has to be kept a certain
Yeah.
way and all that. Yeah, and it's like really poorly kept. The rules. It's frustrating.
What's like as was, it's like one light bulb illuminating it's
Yeah.
like this room full of paintings. But El Jaleo, which was a painting that Sargent did when he was like in his early 20s, I think. It's the Spanish Dancers.
Yeah.
Dude,
Right.
that
Right.
painting is nuts. And that's decently lit because it's in its own little thing, you know. I don't know how it's not cracked to shit because it's like outside, uh,
Great.
in like a
That's like
covered
the
thing.
that's like the
I don't
David
know.
in Florence was outside in the square outside the hall of the what was
For the
it called,
longest
the hall of
time,
the
right?
500.
For the
Yeah, it was out
Yeah.
front there for I want to say probably 100 years. And it's not rubble right now somehow.
Hell no. Yeah. So it's like they smartened up and brought that thing inside.
Yeah, I imagine it took a bit
Um,
of restoration. Oh, I was gonna say the other one that blew me away was seeing um, the golden rule by Rockwell. I saw that in the of all places, the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh. I saw it in there
the
because
which one was the
the
Golden Rule?
the one where he has all the different people and it's like a big square composition and it's that huge stack of different people from all over the world and then
Oh
handwritten
my
in
God.
gold
Yeah.
is do unto others.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
hand painted in the lettering. But I saw that at the Warhol Museum because when I was there in Pittsburgh, I was there for my friend Philip's wedding out near Altoona. But I think I might have also been. It might have been like coincidentally for. No, it couldn't have been. I was gonna say it might have been for Ilixcon, but anyways, I digress. It was a Alex Ross.
Oh, the Alex Ross
Yeah, it
Rockwell.
was Alex Ross show just for Alex Ross, but it was at the top floor of the Warhol Museum, and they made you go through the whole Warhol Museum. I don't know. Maybe people like Warhol out there, and I shouldn't say made you. You had the privilege of seeing all of his stuff, but I had to walk through all that in order to get up to the top floor, and it was just wall to wall Alex Ross pieces, and off to the side it had people who influenced Alex Ross. So it was J.C. Leyendecker,
Loomis.
Loomis,
Yeah.
all originals for these people, and that Golden Rule painting by Norman Rockwell. So
Dude,
it was
that's
it was a
nuts.
nuts experience.
They had the Loomis mermaid piece there, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that was the
Dude,
one.
are you
I think
kidding me?
this.
Like
I
that
sent
is.
you a whole bunch of images. I think when I
That's
was at
right.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one. You're right. Right. That's why I'm remembering it because I remember seeing details that you shot of the Golden Rule
Yeah.
painting. I gotta go back and take a look at those things. Yeah, we'd send each other like photos of all these crazy things.
Yeah, we used to. Yeah, we used to
Yeah.
go whenever we were on trips. We would go to museums and send photos of the museums
Be
to
like,
each
dude,
other.
you gotta check this out. This is crazy.
There was a lot.
Um, so Aaron says a lot of paintings you mentioned are large. Do you think scale impacts your experience? Have you been blown away by comparatively tiny art?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, scale. Yeah, for me is I like large paintings, and I aspire to do larger pieces. Because some of my favorite paintings are large, but there are a lot of small paintings that I just absolutely like are blown away by. Um, Actually, Charles Bark, whom we were talking about, 19th century artist, he has like these small paintings that are just like epic, you know. And yeah, you see like tiny little sketches too. I think a lot of those artists too. It was so normal for them to work life size.
Yeah,
Like
that
the
was like
a lot of
how
them were like
that
portrait
was
painters and things.
right.
You know,
It's how a piece was presented, right? It was you had to everyone had needed to see it in the room, so it needed to be pretty big so everyone could enjoy it.
but I've seen tiny Andrew Loomises that are just incredible. Um, did I tell you this story,
No, no, Andrew Loomis
dude?
piece.
Yeah, did I held in Andrew Loomis in my and
No, whoa, when was this?
dude, oh my god. So, um, there's a professor. I won't give out this name from Fredonia, retired.
Oh, what's his address?
I know, right? He had his dad was an art director back in the 50s in New York, and he had the Ford account. So he knew Kobe Whitmore, he knew all of the Cooper Studios people.
No
He'd
way.
hang out with all of these people, all these people. And this professor would tell me, it's like, oh, I used to go to the Society of Illustrators when I go visit my dad all the time, and we'd have lunch there. Right. And so like stupid, so like crazy stuff. So he kept saying like you gotta. So I walked in to his office one time, and I saw a Kobe Whitmore, and I was like, "Is that a Kobe Whitmore?" He was like, "Yeah."
Wow.
It was a car ad. This is nutty, like, because they don't exist in nature,
I know, I know, I know.
So he was like, "You got to come over one day, and you got to see all this artwork I have for my dad,"
Holy crap! Wow.
and it years went by. You got to come over. I was like, yeah, I know. I got to come over. I
You
really
kept
want to
blowing
see
him
this
off,
stuff.
right?
So I know, blowing him off. Classic Ray. Um, and so finally he retires, and I was like, oh my god, I really got to go. I got to go over. So I come over at the end of the semester. Tyler, I walk into the room. The first thing I see is a small black and white Andrew Loomis painting. I recognize the model from Creative Illustration in the book,
No way.
and it was made out to his dad.
What? By Andrew
I
Loomis
was
himself.
like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it,
That's so
and I
cool.
just yelled out. I yelled out, I'm like, holy shit, you have an Andrew Loomis? And he's like, he knew enough about illustration, but like he didn't know. He sort of kind of knew who Andrew Loomis was. I'm like this is
What?
rare, man. You don't understand. Like this is like you just don't see this stuff. It
Didn't
was
even
just
know
like
what he had. Amazing. Amazing.
no, man. He knew he had stuff. He knew he had stuff, and he would research it. But like he just did. He wasn't an illustrator. He went, he did, sculpture, and he did his own like gallery world type of stuff. So
Yeah, yeah.
but like he appreciated the art a lot. He had all these like freaking awesome, um, old school, a lot of like Cooper Studios guys, like gouache paintings, and um, yeah, it was pretty
Damn.
amazing. But he had an Andrew Loomis, man. I'll send you the picture of the Andrew Loomis because
Please.
I have it, dude. It
I
was so
will.
good,
I will. I should look at it on my phone while we're on Livebrush next time.
dude. And you
But
know
not
what?
show
He
not show
is,
the chat. Just be like, whoa, wow.
yeah, yeah, like ASMR,
Yeah,
art
exactly.
experience. Oh my god,
This is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Look at the brushstrokes.
So
Um,
that's how you become a master painter. Just looking at
yeah.
this.
So that Andrew Loomis was tiny, Aaron. I would say it was around like 12 by 16, 12 by 18. Um, and so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all those,
Um,
like, remember those Assad Ribics that we found, Silver Surfer Requiem
dude,
pages?
those
They're,
those
they're
weren't that
amazing,
large,
and
and
they're
they were
very small.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw his Conan stuff. Did I show?
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
think you were
yeah.
with,
His
dude.
Conan stuff, his Loki stuff's really good.
His Loki stuff was good. It was like incredible. Yeah, he's just a incredible artist. Alec Hamilton. On that note, any tips for painting small faces? That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, I reduce them down to just the main shapes. So if it's a really small head, you want to make sure you get that shadow under the brow for the eyes and under the nose and the lip, like right below the lip and the bottom of the chin. If you can hit all those just as shapes, as broad shapes, it'll really read as a face. I do that a
Yeah.
lot.
Just a big like you have to just make sure that you're also the designing of your light allows for it too. Like you've designed your light in a way where you have those broad shapes, where it would make sense that all those broad shapes would be in.
Yeah,
Um,
and if you already have good reference, shrink it down and shrink whatever the head is down as small as you can and see what's left, and then paint those shapes that you see that are left.
yeah, just keeping it simple, light and dark masses. You don't need much, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's all
I
shapes. Like always remember that. This reminds me of Donato talking about a piece that he did for
He
magic.
doesn't put that many figures in his
No, no,
paintings.
no. So it's not a
No,
multi-figured
no, I'm
thing,
joking. No, I'm
but
joking.
it's
No,
it's
because
like
Donato has like. Do you remember
he's got a lot of multi-figure things.
the freaking like? It was like the. It was
Please,
Lord of the
Donato,
Rings
come
one,
back to the
right? It was
chat,
like this.
please.
Yeah.
But my point
Donato
was,
pops in here every so often. Yeah.
yeah, I
Sorry,
know.
I'm like throwing you off. Yeah.
No, no, but he did a thing. He did a piece. I think it was no, it wasn't for magic. It was just one of his paintings, anyways. But it was of a guy using a maul stick to paint a portrait, and he was
Oh
like, "Well, how
yeah.
am I going to paint a portrait at an angle like that?" And so what he did is I think he said he just brought it into Photoshop and skewed it at that angle, and then he just painted the shapes. So a lot of times it is just about painting the shapes in order to get a good likeness, or for something to
Yeah. I
read
mean,
at distance. Go ahead.
he's. Well, I was just like, he's he's actually a really good person to look at because the painting, like his heads, even the smallest ones, they're really shockingly simple. Like when you
Yeah.
look at them up close, like when they reduce down, it looks like he tickled every little eyebrow hair, or eyelash on it, but it's really not.
Yeah, I do. I have that situation when I have to bring a small head in. You were talking about like controlling your light, or, and I was talking about simple, like keeping simple shapes into it. I I will change the light basically just for that little figure in the background. Like they'll be in a different lighting scenario, like they'll be standing in a shadow or something, just so that I can get that shape, that like really recognizable human face shape.
Yeah, I mean, I would. You just have to, right? I mean, I'm just thinking about like, do you remember that horse painting? Not the horse painting, the Napoleon painting that Ernest Meissonier did at the Met. It was like the gigantic, like
Yeah, yeah.
Napoleonic
The
troops like
rearing
riding
horse.
around Napoleon. Yeah, rearing horses. Yeah, and like how small those heads were, and they was just basically like shadow shapes of the eyes, nose, and mouth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, it, like it, you realize like but if you look at some of the certain lighting situations, like it doesn't really make some of it doesn't make sense. If you really nitpick it, you could see like it's carefully curated the light. Like there's a random cloud here
Mm-hmm.
to separate this to illuminate the backlight. Or to put a darker background on the head so it can pop out.
Right.
Like all these things. And what Tyler's talking about is like you have to just creating those, designing it so that you can illustrate what you need to illustrate. Or, but
Yeah, you can
yeah,
get
you've done
something to
some.
read. Like if you need something to read, then design comes in, right? You can paint what you see all day, but when you need something to read a certain way, when you have to force the viewer to see a certain thing, that's where you have to design stuff.
Yeah. Yep. And it becomes more and more of a priority if you're going to be a picture maker. It's the for me it's the priority. It's is that nowadays where I'm just like, how do I, like we were talking about last stream, how do I tell the story um, as effectively as possible?
Right.
Brian Hitch. You know Brian Hitch. He's a comic book artist.
I think so. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I do know him actually.
Yeah, the Ultimates and old. So he described drawing. I think it was in his book or like in an episode of Sidebar podcast. Remember the Sidebar podcast?
I
They're
love
still
that.
around.
I love that side
Yeah,
when they were
shout out
doing
to
active stuff.
Dwight Swain and Adrian, man.
Guys are amazing.
Yeah, great people. Sidebar podcast. It's called Sidebar Forever now. Oh wait, so Victor Murray said, I got to run, but it's been great tuning in. Been meaning to do it for a while. What a joy going through your first art book, Tyler. Congrats on that.
Thanks so much,
Victor.
man.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Victor.
it. Good seeing you in the chat, man. Keep up the amazing work. Yeah, everyone, check out Victor Mari's stuff. It's really awesome.
Really, really great stuff, man.
Super nice guy, too. A rare super combo.
And Tyler would know, because Tyler's not a nice person.
Mm-hmm. A complete jerk. So I'm always thrown off when I see nice people.
What was I talking about? I don't know. I don't care. Oh, design.
Yeah, design.
Anyway, we were talking about it, but it's you wouldn't think, like, if you're, it's just everywhere. And I think to Brian Hitch, right? Brian Hitch said that he views drawing only as a means of a tool to tell stories with. And so if he needs to tell stories better, and that means better drawing or different types of improvements on his drawing practice, he will focus on that. But like, he's to a point where he just cares about storytelling. That's all he cares about.
Was he the one who did the rant about artists? Like, the artists got better than other artists by tracing. Is that the guy?
No, that was the great Neil Adams. Man.
Neil Adams, that's right. What a great, I wish we could post that clip in the chat right now, because it's such like it's just like a slam dunk on anybody who's like, no, you should never trace anything. It's just a complete slam dunk on the argument. It's like he ends the argument in that video.
And
right
he's
there.
Neil Adams, so he can make up anything out of his head easy. It was like one of the great comic book artists of all time. It was just,
I'm sure you could look it up, folks.
You can look it up. It was on
Kevin
Smith's Fat Man on Batman podcast when he used to do that. And I don't know if he still does it, but he had Neil Adams on, because Neil Adams was one of the great Batman artists. And so he was talking about, they were just talking about, I don't know what they were talking about, but he brought that up, and it was great.
I think I can't remember exactly, but
where he was like front hall. It's like, you see all those people, he's like, they look like shit, because he didn't trace photographs.
Yeah,
it was just so funny. It was just,
I think it came up because Smith was probably saying something like, "Man, you're just so amazing," and then he was like, "Well, let's get down to the meat of this, People got better than other people because they trace photographs. I mean, I think he brings up Streusen too in that, and it's just like, yeah, because that's what was demanded of them at the time. Streusen had to make photorealistic paintings of people, and the likenesses had to be perfect. Well, you got to trace photographs, and he got better, and he got better than all of his people that he was competing with that didn't trace photographs.
Right, and it doesn't. You see, like, you get up to a point. Here's the thing about Drew Streusen, and I love using him as an example, because go ahead and trace off photographs. Like, when you're first starting out, you have every tool, better tools than what he had. Yet if you do a drawing of Harrison Ford, you wouldn't be able to do it as well as Drew Streusen if you're just starting out. Like, because you don't have, drawing is not about just copying things.
Even if you were tracing the exact same photo that he was using, it wouldn't be as good as his drawing.
Because it's not about copying. It's not about copying. Yeah. So it's an understanding. That's the thing. Like, you're understanding and you're visually communicating things. Oh, Aaron Rufino found the clip.
Yes. Oh, put it in there.
You kidding me?
You're amazing.
Yeah, already? Oh my god.
It's
Um,
such a good
yeah,
clip.
it
It's
was great.
such,
It was
and
such a great clip
like
because
anybody in the chat who's like, trying to be an artist or whatever, and they're surrounded by artists that are like, you should never trace or whatever. Please watch that. Learn, learn how valuable tracing is. I mean, Greg goes over it in his Above the Timberline piece, his demo as well.
yeah,
So
absolutely,
it's super
absolutely.
important.
I think it's a first he doing that actually tells you tracing actually shows you what your if you're conscious about it shows you what shapes works what communicates the most because you could take a piece of reference and trace everything and then when you're done you spend like a week tracing it and when you're done it just looks like a noise, right?
Right.
And so it's just about placement. That's all it really is, and getting the information that you need. Um, it's not much more than that, you know.
I mean,
And so
I've done a lot of it. Like I've traced a lot of
yeah,
stuff, and it informed me when I was doing it in art school, and even up to now, I do it in a lot of situations. It informed me how to draw. Like
yeah,
I'm looking at my hand under the projector, and I'm tracing over a photograph, and I'm seeing like, oh, if I make this particular mark, it looks a lot more like what I'm trying to draw, and it informed me on how to make marks while drawing. It was super helpful.
yeah. That's exactly that. That was a way better way of explaining it,
Yeah, dude, I wasn't gonna say
Um,
anything, but you're fucking it up.
uh, yeah, I'm a huge like you know it's looked down on. I think it's just for a lack of understanding, and b you know what, like if you're someone, it all depends on what it is that you do, right? And so if you're doing likenesses and realism and things like that, and you're working from photography, then this is a common tool that's used. I use it all the time.
Yeah,
Um, you have to understand how to use it, and how you do that is you learn the fundamentals of drawing so you could train your eye to see. So that way, tracing is much more beneficial to you because you're learning, like Tyler was saying, what marks communicates the things that you want to communicate. If you are a comic book artist that works in a super stylized way, it's not useful to you unless you're running into something you need to have clean accuracy quickly on. But nowadays, it's so people do it all the time. They don't even know it. I mean, they're taking actual photograph, photo bashing and things like that at this point. Like concept artists, it's all about speed. Like you get up to a point where everyone knows the fundamentals, and then it's about speed and efficiency. How well you draw. You see, when I talk about like Tyler, I really learned a lot about drawing with Tyler. It was more not. It's not like, oh, you see this arm, and your reference is low, but in your painting it's high. Just copy the photograph. No, like it's more on like, here's the function of the arm. You have it this way, but really the muscle wouldn't allow it to turn this way, and it's a much cleaner shape if you turn the wrist this way, because it reads better. That's design. That's drawing. You know.
yeah,
Um, so having intent behind your marks. I'm a huge like that's a believer in that. Um, but trace is not that big of a deal. It's not really much. You don't have to. I mean, it's not anything more than it is. It's just placing things in the right place. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Right? It's not a big deal.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
but
Hey,
but if people who are doing it, it's really not that. If you want to grid everything out and do that, do fine. Like Drew Susan wrapped it up really wonderfully. He's like, this is how I get my results. If you get them somewhere else, good for you. Like
yeah.
it's fine, but this is how I do it.
I'm glad you brought it up that when you said earlier, like it's the tool that you need to get it done, right? Like And like what you like when you just quoted Strussen now, it's like that's what if this is how you need to get a good painting, that's great. That's all you need. You got a good painting. Like who cares how you got there? You got a
Right.
great painting. Like Strussen
And
talks about in his video, like he's destroying this one brush to get an effect, and people are like, oh, he's quoting other people like, oh, but you're ruining that brush. He's like, yeah, but I got a good painting. I got a cool painting. Who cares about the brush?
right, who cares about the brush, right? And I remember Bill Monet basically told us like, everyone go get a projector. Um, as a figurative artist, you're gonna need one to survive. And so we all and went out and went and got our like I got an opaque projector, a digital projector. You got like an overhead projector, like a
Yeah,
copy thing.
yeah. Mine's the copycocky.
Like
Yeah, which is like it was like trying to be a lucograph kind of thing.
the Artograph. Yeah,
Artograph, sorry. Artograph.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember our first. We were like, "Ah, this is crazy. You know, this is how they work. It's cool." And our first illustrations, we thought they were going to be so awesome. They look like shit.
Dude, I know. That was the
It
thing,
has
right? It
such
was like,
bad
okay,
drawing.
I got a thing. I got a projector. I can do it. It's going to be amazing. And then
Yeah,
it was garbage. Like it looked like
it was
trash
garbage.
because we didn't know how to draw
Yeah,
yet. And
no,
it's like a chicken and the egg scenario. Like did our tracing teach us how to draw, or did our learning the fundamentals of drawing teach us how to trace?
yeah, exactly. It's just like, uh, drives me crazy. I just love that. I remember thinking, I was saying that to a bunch of students, like about tracing. I says, if you think that learning how to draw means copying that what's in front of you, then you're missing the point of drawing.
Yeah, and you're not going to get far. It's not
It
going to
has
take you
nothing to
very
do.
far.
Yeah. So, but it's cool. It's great. It's you know I love, because Tyler and I both had the same bias. Like, oh no, I don't want to cheat or anything like that. But it's
Right.
not. It's not.
And I think getting
But
past
I
that
digress.
idea too, right? That idea that there is cheating. You know, that,
Yeah,
I mean, I guess there is cheating, right? It's called plagiarism. That's
totally.
cheating,
It's called
and
plagiarism.
it's
Yeah.
also immoral. You shouldn't do it.
Right.
But
Right.
otherwise, like what's cheating? All your job is to make a cool image. However you get there. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're murdering
Yeah.
people, probably shouldn't be doing that.
As long as you're not violating any state or federal laws,
Yeah.
you otherwise, you'd have to have a studio in international waters.
Yeah, like like in a cargo ship.
The
That's
cargo
always
ship.
floating
Yeah.
outside, and then you beam your stuff in. You have Starlink,
Yeah.
and you beam in your
Starlink.
paintings.
What do you think those are for? For illustrators who want to
Yeah,
operate in under nefarious workflows.
yeah. Why do you think they
Uh,
invented that?
so the Fat Bear says I tell junior designers to do the equivalent of tracing to learn about how things are constructed. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
It's such a
absolutely.
great way to learn
And get
about forms.
oh yeah, 100%. And Gibbs Santos says I used to do some studies where after I finished a drawing, I would paste the reference above my drawing to compare what I got wrong, so I would draw it again, tracing to train my eye and brain about the marks, proportions, etc. I thought it was really helpful. Yeah, it was really helpful for Tyler and I when we were doing that in school, like when we were taking references and tracing them, and then even like on tracing paper and seeing what the results were, and how to change things so things read a little bit easier, and what good reference is. I mean, I learned so much doing that.
Yeah, I learned like I immediately learned. I wouldn't say immediately, but I very quickly learned if the image I just took with my camera was good, like was useful to what I was trying to do. That's like I think one of the most important things you can learn is what good reference actually is. Now
Right.
I'll get jobs and they're like, we have reference for you, and I'll be like, oh great, here we go. And then they'll
Yeah.
send me the reference, and I'm like, great. So this you don't have anything for me, is what you're trying to say.
It's like two DPI.
Yeah, or it's like it's totally like, oh, we had a professional photographer take this, and it's like
Oh
nothing,
no.
like nothing against
Yeah.
professional photographers. They're great and they do their
Yeah.
work and they're amazing, but it's not for illustration. It is overlit, like it's lit from all kinds of places. It looks really great for photography, But for illustration, it's like
It's
might as
designed to
well
be flat,
not.
right?
Yeah, it's designed to be
It's
flat.
designed to be, yeah.
It's like might as well not even have a reference if that's who I'm getting the reference from.
Yeah, no, my God. Yeah, I know. Um, Rye Farrell said, Francis Nort said, international watercolors, in quotes. That's great. um,
I like that.
Rye Farrell said, do you guys have thoughts on using AI as a tool to previs physical paintings? I've got thoughts on this.
I've
Do you have
seen
thoughts on
this.
this?
Yeah, I signed up for the
Can I,
midsummer thing to mess with it.
dude? I gotta do that. I
It's
gotta do that.
it's you know what? I think it's really cool. Maybe you
So,
got thoughts.
did
I
you
want to hear
see?
your thoughts, but I think it's really
Oh,
neat.
I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts on this, and I would never think that I would have thoughts on this, but um, I would see all the like the mid journey. Was it called right?
Yeah, sorry, Midjourney. I said midsummer. I meant
Mid
Midjourney.
journey and Dali, or midsummer. I'm like, oh, I never heard of that. I should get on that waiting
It's a
list. No,
crazy movie.
so, uh, yeah, two things. I'll start backwards. Did you? John Foster has been taking his own paintings and running them through
Oh, really?
AI, dude, and then reconfiguring them and then using them as a basis to go paint oils.
Oh,
And they
that's
are
smart.
insane. And I was like, bing, bing, bing. Yes. Yes, please. That
See, I
is.
I think these paintings are really neat because they remind me of. I had an exercise in some art class I took that ended up being really cool, and it's actually not something too dissimilar to what Donato does in a lot of his paintings. Is is Donato? What I was doing is a little bit different, but what Donato does is he kind of starts with a big abstract shape and then builds a painting around that, with figures and but it's based around this abstract shape that is compositionally based and design based rather than placing a bunch of figures in a spot and then trying to tell a story. Like he's building it around an abstract shape. And this
It's basically an
exercise,
abstract painting. If you didn't know what a figure looked like, you're from an alien from outer space. It would look like an abstract painting. Basically,
yes,
all these
yes.
paintings.
And the exercise that this reminded me of when I was a kid in some art class was just they asked us to just kind of scribble on a piece of paper, and then once we'd done the scribbles, to try to find a shape within that, and then make a painting out of that shape. Right? You got a fairly abstract expressionist result, but you're finding like the composition within all those scribbles, and this is what this AI is doing that, right? It's scribbling, but it's using all this extra data in order to make those scribbles. And I think that's really cool. It's like I like it's not like me doing the scribbles. It's not like I was doing anything there, right? I was just scribbling. So it's like getting that scribble result, but from an AI doing the scribbling is really neat. That's super cool.
Yeah, I think. I mean,
Nothing against it.
no, I mean, and it has right now AI. It has a look now. At this point, at least I know at this point when I see a piece of AI generated art,
Oh yeah,
I can
for sure.
tell.
Immediately.
And it's just kind of like I view it as like old school, like the first Photoshop painting,
Mm-hmm.
which was like kind of garish, or just like you could tell like, oh boy, this is early digital art. Let's have some fun. But it was like mind blowing at the time. Um, Now I was on like a Twitter space where I was talking to. It turned up like me being interviewed by all these developers in VR and all these people who just spent all their time in virtual reality and um, and AI and all that stuff. And one of them was an AI artist, and they had asked me, "How do you feel about AI art?" Generated art. I said, I think it's great. I was like, it's another way of visualizing. It's a visualization tool for artists. Like that's the
Mm-hmm.
way I look at it. It's like if it helps you get there faster, great. Or if it's a start for something, like if you can input in sketches and ideas and they can output something from you, at least it'll get you started to inspire you to do something. That you maybe a solution you never thought of. And I
Yeah.
think that's really impressive. And the second thing, a follow-up question they asked me is like, would you allow an AI, would you allow your paintings to be run and trained on them, or the AI to be trained on your paintings? And would you be worried um, about like your career or something like that? And I'm thinking like, they could have my paintings. Like, good luck. You're never gonna get a painting that I do because you're not me, right? Like,
Yeah, just
there's so
like
many
another
more.
artist wouldn't, even if the AI was smart enough to be a person, right? Even if it was a sentient AI, it's still not going to paint like you because it's not you. It doesn't
No,
have your experience.
right. And I was making the point. I said, there's so much more to just a bunch of colors. Like, it's not a trick. What I do is not a trick. It's just, it, it's, it's an amalgam of like all of my experiences throughout my entire life. Like, you can't get that from, deconstructing an image into a color palette
Right.
or like certain types of strokes and getting like a glossy of strokes. Like, it just doesn't work like that. So I say, have at it. Great. Like, there are going to be some jobs that will be turned over to, instead of like a lot of people doing it. Like, I think it might shrink some concept art teams just by a little bit, um, but I don't think by much. But
Yeah.
I think you won't have as much manpower because you can output so much more variations on things. And so when it gets that good, I think that will help. But that will also, you see, it democratizes everything though. Now, like, you can have as an artist, you can be your own team of concept artists.
Yeah. Right. You can have
That's the way
crazy.
I
You
thought
can
of
have
it.
crazy iteration in a
Right.
vacuum. For me, it's
And
like I mean, no, you were gonna say something. Good. Good.
no, so like if you, it's like I'm not. I said I don't understand why artists are worried. I says if you're worried as an artist, then you got to start asking yourself some questions that you needed to ask yourself a long time ago, which is like, what do you want to do? Who are you as an artist? What makes, what are your, what do you enjoy doing? And what are your likes and dislikes, and why do you do things the way you do? Because if you spent your career copying or being like a knockoff of another artist, then and you're just like a style or a couple of like technical tricks, then you never going to have longevity anyway. Like,
Yeah.
it was, that's just the reality of history's taught us anything. It's like y- there's thousands of artists, that go through the industry, and you'll see them, their work, and you'll disappear eventually in 10 years or 15 years because they were just a style. They were just like a cheaper version of some famous artists. And what I mean by cheaper is that like they could copy them, but and be hired by publications or something like that who had smaller budgets and couldn't afford the actual artist, so that they would basically just hire this person.
Yeah, and that's what the tool is
Um,
gonna. That's what the tool will be, I think, for a while.
yeah, yeah. So
I will say. I
I
will say
understand
this
that.
though is I don't think they'll probably make AIs that can copy people perfectly, for sure. Like you'll be like, I can't distinguish that because it's copying them, but it's not original, right? Um, and I think there will definitely be AIs that are way better than anybody. Like that's just guaranteed to happen. Like and any AI machine will be far superior, but it'll still be its own artist. It'll be its own style. It won't be somebody
Yeah,
else.
and
It won't be a knockoff, essentially.
yeah, and if that's, I don't know. I'm just like, is it bad? I'm just like, well,
I'm not concerned with it.
I'm not concerned at all. I'm not concerned at all. I'm not concerned at all. Like,
I'm mostly excited for the art. Like it's gonna be really cool art. That's what I'm excited
yeah,
to
and I
see.
think I was looking at what John Foster was doing, and I was like, I could use that.
Yeah,
I could
it's a
definitely
cool
use
toy.
that.
Cool tool
Yeah, because I mean, I
and toy.
can like think about what that will look like in oil paint. It's like something you've never seen before. Um,
Right,
it's
right.
just, you know, it was just like, I would love to talk to Greg Manches about it because he's been around enough to see the transitions. Because he was the same way about digital painting. People were like, "It's going to end traditional painting as we know it,"
Right.
and it didn't.
It didn't, and it won't. Like, and it's being
It
used
won't.
just like the AI stuff. It's being used particularly as a strong tool in
Yeah,
video games and development and visual development. Like, it's heavily used there. So I mean, it's all these things become useful in their own arenas.
yeah. I think any tool that will help um, whittle down um, the man hour, like
Yeah,
the hard like labor, I think is I'm all for right now.
you're
But
quoting Carl Sagan here now. He said
am I?
he said the beauty of technology is that it will eliminate human toil. Um, and
Bam.
and
That's how
that's
you do it.
I mean
And
that's
that's
his
how you end the
optimistic
stream.
view. That's his optimistic view.
That's how you end the stream.
Oh my God, it's
That's how you end the
7:01.
stream.
Good way. We ended
It
with a
is.
Carl Sagan quote.
Yeah, man. I ended with the Carl Sagan quote.
Ray
The
ended
Carl
it.
and I.
Ray ended
Carl and
Carl
I. With the
Sagan.
Ray and Carl. All right, everyone. Well, dude, that's looking great, man.
Thanks. Yeah, I
Looking
think
beautiful.
once I get into the puffy clouds back there, I think it'll start to really come together. But thanks a
Yeah.
lot, dude. Yours is looking good too, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting there.
Starting to
It's a
punch
bit
those
of a bit.
values.
Yeah, we're getting there. It's really subtle, close together values, but yeah, it's I'm covering things. So I'll continue this next week. Um, so yeah, come back and see that. I might work on it maybe a little bit more, just underpainting wise, but um, you will see like when I go back over it in color, which is what I intend to do. And you're gonna keep working on this next week, Tyler.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay,
It's got a long way to go, so I'm just taking my time on it, having a fun time.
sweet,
It's
sweet,
it looks a little different
awesome.
on the stream, but I'll post like a whip or something at some point
Okay. Yeah. Post it and give it to send it to me, and then I'll shoot it on the Livebrush Instagram page. So,
for sure.
well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Um, my name or I've been Ray Bonilla. You can follow my work on raybonilla.com or follow me on Instagram at Ray Bonilla Painter. And who are you, sir?
I have been and always will be Tyler Jacobson, and you can find me at Tyler Jacobson Art at Tyler Jacobson Art, as well as www.tylerjacobsonart. And well, before we sign off, I'll probably let Ray fill the details in on this. But before we sign off, we will be doing a stream on Friday at VisionX that we talked about at the beginning of the stream. But we just want to remind you guys again about that to tune in and
Yeah.
get some
Yes.
tickets.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're interested, just check out the Moobot. It shout out one of the announcements. But if you check it out on Instagram, you'll see our all the info for that. Um, visionxlive.com. It's going to be July 29th, this Friday, um, at 5 o'clock, 5 to 6 Pacific Standard Time, 8 to 9 Eastern Standard Time. And make sure you use code RBO22. So RBO22. Because that'll get you 30% off. So,
Nice.
yeah, so thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's watching this on demand on YouTube. Really appreciate it. We always love people, all the comments, and also people just chiming in on the Instagram saying how much they love just hitting play and just working alongside us, which is pretty awesome. Uh, and so if you like the video, please consider liking, and if you haven't subscribed already, consider subscribing. Please also check us out on Instagram at Livebrush for any announcements for our live show, and I'll give you all links to everything there. So as well as work in progresses like Tyler has right here, or whenever I end up finishing this study here. So all right, well, thank you so much, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
See you
Thanks,
all
Tyler.
then. Thanks, Ray.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.